I am.
Let's move it over to Jackie Dean. And Jackie Eilers and Ron Eilers have been good friends of ours for decades. And Ron retired a few years ago and moved back to Castle Rock. We've traveled many times and did a Caribbean cruise a few months ago to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary with our gang. Jackie came back from the Caribbean and immediately went out to San Francisco and hopped on the Grand Princess, which took her to Hawaii and hopefully to a prompt return. That wasn't quite the case.
Oh.
Jackie, take it away, kid.
Okay. Well, as you know, we got full national media of this ship because it didn't know where to go or land, as you say, dock in. But we got notification of that we had the COVID on the ship as we were coming back from Hawaii, heading back to Colorado. So wasn't pleasant news to get and a little scary.
Can you put Jackie onto full screen?
No, you got to do that yourself by going to up here to on your up in the upper right corner. There's a speaker view and a grid view. You must have the gallery view. You must have the gallery view on.
There you are.
There.
Oh, got it.
They got it.
Good.
I don't really need to be on full screen, but that's okay. So anyway, so we got the bad news and a little scary, and I was rooming with my sister-in-law, and next door to me was my neighbor, and we just got in and ended up with the captain telling us different things of going on. He didn't have any idea what was going on himself because they weren't going to let us dock as we had to come back towards San Francisco. They wouldn't let us dock. They didn't want the ship there. The governor didn't want it, the mayor didn't want it, and even our president didn't want us back in. So we're out there 55 miles outside of San Francisco waiting to see what's gonna happen. So finally, on, I think it was March 6th,
After 5 days.
after 5 days, we finally were able to dock in Oakland. The mayor there allowed us to come in to a dock there. While all this was happening, they were waiting, for the CDC and the HHS to find out what they were gonna do with us. This is the first time this has happened for any ship to be coming into the States. So in the meantime, we had a helicopter fly out to our ship that was delivering masks for us and delivering tests because there were 41 people sick on the ship. And they didn't, they just needed to find out more about them, I guess. So after that, then the helicopters came back the next day with the test results, and of the 41, 21 were tested positive for the COVID-19. 19 of them were the crew members, and 2 were passengers. And those 2 passengers were fairly sick. So another ship was brought in, another smaller boat, I guess, was brought out to us, and they took those passengers off. And then the rest of us just hung in there waiting for us to get docked. So we finally got docked on the 6th.
Do your first photo.
And now you can see our first photo, Dean, of this is us with our masks on. This is myself and my sister-in-law, Donna. So we started wearing masks a lot earlier than anybody else. And just scary. So that was good.
Your meals.
Our meals were delivered to us, but they would knock on our door and they would put it on the floor on a tray, and we had to bring it in. They wouldn't come into our room or anything. So anytime we needed new towels, Kleenex, toilet paper, anything, we had to call housekeeping, and they had, arranged to have it dropped off in our room. So, you know, it wasn't fun. Fortunately, we did have a balcony and we could be outside because you could not go outside your room at all. So that helped. And we could keep the doors open so you could, you know, have fresh air coming in. The weather was not the best, so we couldn't even be out on the balcony until after we got docked. Then the weather was good in Oakland area there. But out there we had rain, we had wind, and it wasn't fun, but at least we could have the fresh air coming into our room. So then
Did you have wine?
we did have wine. We were allowed to order it with our meals. I even had a bottle of vodka in our room. So,
So then you finally got to Oakland.
yeah, so we're in Oakland now, and now we're just sitting on the ship again for a few days. So we get there on the 9th, on a Monday. So on Tuesday, my neighbor and I, because we're both from Colorado, got notification to say, get your luggage out on Tuesday morning at 11:30, and then wait for you to be called to get off the ship. So we did. So we packed our luggage up, got it out that next day on the 10th, on that morning. And then all day we waited and never got called. Our luggage was gone. So we just hung around. And then the next day, my sister-in-law, who is from North Carolina, so she got the call to put her luggage out, and she was called later that day. And so she left. And she went on, they flew her then on to Georgia, to Dobbins Air Base there. They separated us, as they separated most everybody. Those that lived to the East Coast went to the east side, and those on the west went to the west side. So we were there another day. So it was Thursday before we finally got our call. And so we left, went down. You go through a procedure where they take your temperature. They ask you, you know, at that time of the symptoms was fever, coughing, chest, you know, tightness in the chest. Neither one of us had any of that. So we got on a bus, and then they took us to the airport, and we were then flown. At the time, we had no idea where we were going. They never, you know, I don't think they knew at the time. I think this is where there was all the complications of figuring out. That's why we were on the ship for 5 days, just not knowing. You're on a sick ship. You're scared to death, you know. So you finally, we get the call. We go, and we're going to Miramar, the Marine Corps Air Station in Miramar, San Diego. So we get there. Yeah, you want to do the picture now, Dean, of us? Now that's my neighbor and I wearing our masks, and we're at the base there. We like that sign, so we just got a big kick out of that for distinguished visitor, you know. So, but we were allowed outside there. It was great. We had a lot of places or a big area to walk. It felt good to be outside, although the weather in San Diego at that time wasn't the best. But we did it anyway, just because we wanted to. Every day they took our temperature twice a day, just to make sure we didn't have fever. Then we still didn't have luggage. Our luggage at that time we were told, was at Travis Air Force Base up in Northern California. So here we are 5 days before we ever get our luggage. So wasn't quite nice, but but we did it anyway. And then
have him take the next picture of your
yeah, then the next picture, Dean. We call these people our marshmallow people, because they're all dressed in white, and they're coming and delivering. They deliver all our food, breakfast, morning, and lunch, and dinner. You get that
picture?
The picture, Dean, of those. Anyway,
They're hazmat.
They're hazmat. They were scary. Anyway, they had to be fully covered up because we were contaminated. So after, that's what they look like and how they were around the place there.
The accommodations were good.
But the
staff-
accommodations were good, and as we were walking outside, we just had to be social distancing ourselves, and
Staff was good.
the staff was good. So then we were notified on that Sunday, the 15th, that there's a good possibility that we wouldn't have to stay the 14 days in quarantine, that we might be able to get to go home later that week. The only way our governor in Colorado would allow us to do that is we had to have the test. So on Monday, the 16th, those from Colorado that wanted to have the test to go home had to have, to be tested. So we got tested. There were about 50 people from Colorado that were on this cruise, and only 32 of us went home that day. Some of the people did not want to do that. They had already decided to rent a car and drive home themselves after their 14 days. Or there were some people that were taken over to either the hotel or the hospital if they were sick. And then we got tested. We never got our results right away, but they kept taking our temperature. And as long as we never had a temperature, then we were allowed to get home. So we were waiting for our flight. So our flight, we were able to get on the plane on the 20th.
You can show the plane now.
Yeah, you can show the plane, Dean. That'll be the last pic, or that next picture. So we're getting on, this is Swift Air. This is a charter. That's what we took coming to San Diego, and now we're taking this back. And better accommodations on this one because they only let you sit in a window or an aisle seat. So they kept everybody kind of distance. And we had our 32 people on there, plus we had a few people that were also going to Montana and Wisconsin. There weren't as many of those people as there were of us, so they combined our flight. So we headed to the DIA signature flight hangar, and that's where that next picture is, and that's where they took us, and that's where the Salvation Army did a fabulous job there. They notified my husband. We had to let him know at the base there, but they notified my husband about our flight arrival time, parking arrangements, and he was met personally by a Salvation Army staff member. And then there was seating in the hangar was arranged. They had lunch boxes were available for everyone. They had blankets. The Salvation Army leadership was very clear on the next steps. They let us know what we had to do. Commuter vans were available to get people to their cars if they were parked at the airport, and overdue parking charges were waived. Vans were also available to get passengers to their homes along the Front Range. They also had my husband, they took him and put him in or showed him where he could park personally right up front there. So then we all walked in with our masks on and sat down and waited for our next direction, and wasn't much after that. They got us in a car and took us over to where my husband's car was, and we took my neighbor home also. And so then we drove home. It was a long, hard ordeal. Don't ever want to go through that again. Scary. So after I got home, it was probably 3 or 4 days later, I finally get a call from this DC.
Yeah, CDC.
The CDC, and then in DC, I get one from the Colorado Health Department. I get one from Tri-County, all telling me that I've been tested positive, which I kind of thought maybe I would be. My only symptoms in the whole time was I could not smell or taste. I had no other symptoms. And at that time, that wasn't even a symptom. They weren't even asking you about that. That came up later. So I was still had to be quarantined for 6 more days in my home because I didn't do the full 14 days at the base. So my husband took the room upstairs. I kept our room downstairs. We quarantined those 6 days, but then we decided to be on the safer side. We quarantined ourselves another 2 weeks just to be on the safe side. I mean, I wasn't sure, but then after that, I mean, I've never had any problems since. I never felt exactly 100% well. I mean, I didn't feel bad. I mean, I just didn't feel sick. It didn't feel like me yet. It probably took another couple weeks, and then I started feeling better. I think it was all the emotional stress and the rest of that went on. So, but that was about it. Now we feel like we're back to normal, or sort of.
Great, Jackie. Do we have any questions?
Jackie, that's amazing. Sorry for your ordeal.
Yeah.
I have a question. When were you reunited with your luggage?
We did get our luggage at the base 5 days. I mean, they had to trace it. In fact, at our base, we had probably 100 pieces of luggage that wasn't any of ours. It was going to the different bases. Our luggage ended up at Travis because we were told at one time, we thought that's where we were going to do our quarantine at. And it ended up not being that. We ended up being in San Diego. One time, Texas, the base in Texas, well, found out Texas didn't want any of us. So it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. It was delightful when we saw the truck pull up and our luggage being taken out, and I thought, yay! So now I got to change of clothes.
Hey, Jackie, this is Ron.
Hi, Ron.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Did Princess ever, while you were still on the ship outside of San Francisco, did Princess ever identify to you who the staff members were that were tested positive? So
No,
that
Ron.
you would know if you had been in contact with
I
any
know.
of them?
See, and no, all they told us was 19 members and only two passengers. So, and from what I understand, those 2 passengers did pass away. But I know you were on the ship before us.
And the first person that died in California was on our ship.
Exactly. So when you got it, you came back, and I think there were 50 people that stayed on the ship from your cruise that then went on to Hawaii. And because I know Sandy was letting me know what was going on,
Right.
because then you were being notified to get checked.
Well, Princess notified us 12 days after we got home.
Yes. Yep. So I'm glad to know that you were fine, that you
Still
tested.
am.
But yeah, no, it was, no, they didn't. We through the grapevine, we heard most of the crew people were in the dining room. But what dining rooms, I don't know. I don't know if it was the main dining rooms or the little restaurants, the restaurants they have. That was just kind of what we had heard. Our favorite bartender that we had that took care of us girls, Albert.
Al,
Al.
the wine bar.
Yes. Well, and that guy too, he never tested. I mean, he was fine. So we see him on Facebook anyway. Our one bartender that we had in the Explorers Lounge. They all had to be tested because then the ship went out to sea and then they had to be taken care of, and then he was flown back to the Philippines. But yeah, so that's all we heard, was that they said it might have been more of the dining, but we were shocked that it was we were expecting it to be more passengers than to be of the crew. So we felt like we actually got on this ship as a sick ship already. I mean, it was already. And at one time when we were getting ready to leave, the three of us were a little hesitant even about going on the ship or even taking the cruise because of what was going on, starting to come in on the COVID-19. But Princess kept telling us, no, we're going to take all these precautions. We're going to test you. We never got our temperature checked when we checked in. None of that was done of the stuff that they told us we were going to do. So here we are on the ship now, and then we're going, okay, well, we had a great cruise going over to the Hawaiian Islands. We did the Hawaiian Islands. We had no problems. Coming back was fine. And then we were supposed to go to Ensenada in Mexico. And they decided, nope, they put a note under our door and said we have the virus on it. And so we had to, I guess it was several hours later, then they decided to confine all of us in our rooms. So, yeah, not fun. I'm just glad, we were just so glad to be home.
When's your next free cruise?
Yeah, to clarify, I'd like to clarify what happened here. To clarify, Ron and Sandy were on a Mexican cruise on the Grand Princess. And they returned to San Francisco, where the Grand Princess then took off again, the same boat that Jackie was on.
Right.
So that was kind of a coincidence.
It was.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting that when I found out that they were on the one that they had just done the Mexican one, it was like, oh.
And it had all kinds of problems before it came into San Francisco to get us from Hawaii.
Any more questions for
Jack,
Jackie?
this is Harry. One quick one. Did you ever get the follow-up antibody test to see if you actually had it, if they were right and you were safe?
Yeah, I am heading to my doctor on Monday, and I'm getting the test then, the antibody test then. Yeah, then I'll know for sure, did I really have it or did I not really have it?
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I mean, you know, you don't know because there's been so many false tests. So yeah. So yeah, I'm going to find out Monday.
Any more questions? Well, Jackie, thank you very, very much.
Okay.
And we will be sure to get you a mug, a speaker mug. All speakers get a mug, coffee mug.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll get. I think Pete, can you get it to her? Or?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I'll deliver it to your house this week.
All right. Well, thank
We're
you.
having a little social get together with some of our friends, and Ron Jack will be there on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, so if I can get it before Wednesday.
Will do.
Thank you, Jackie. That was
All
most
right.
interesting.
Thaning you.
Very interesting.
Yes, it was quite interesting.